Well, good day and welcome to you. It is March the 11th. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you happen to be. I know I am. My name happens to be Gary Willing, and I am glad you're here, and I want to welcome you to this channel and also take the briefest of moments to just remind those who have heard these videos before, encourage those who are new to this information. If you want to know more about this information, you should do just that. You should investigate this information for yourself. You can do it however you want to do it, but I do think the best way to do it is to check out some of the links that I provided in the description portion of these videos. So there you have it. Now I want to dive into this comment and try to address it as best I possibly can. Coming from Heather Noel. It's a religious comment, and I want to set it up kind of first before I start talking about it, if that's okay with Heather and, well, whoever else cares to hear it. I don't like addressing religious comments, for one thing, for a few reasons. But the main reason is I don't really see this information from a religious viewpoint. So to me, it's about, maybe not the same, but just to kind of give an exaggerated example of what I'm talking about, it'd be like if this was a channel about the Super Bowl or about football or baseball or whatever, and somebody brings in religion. Kind of like, why are you bringing this up? This has to do with the problems that are facing humanity more than anything. And Maitreya's priorities in terms of what humanity needs to do first, which he says is create peace. And the only way to do that is to share the resources of the world to bring about justice, to bring about peace. Because if not, we won't have a future. That's what I think this channel is about, and this information is even about. Now, I don't mind talking about it because I know that people view it as religious, but really, if you really look at it, you know, Heather, you have your belief on what you think life is and who Jesus is for you and everything like this. I have a different view of it. You know, the person sitting next to you and down the street and your coworker or whatever might have a different view than you. It doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't make me a bad person. It just means that we have a different view than you. Now, that's why I don't particularly like talking about it, because I don't want to debate of a religious view versus another religious view. You know, I'm only presenting this information for people to look at things and hopefully think some things through for themselves and come up with the answer for themselves, really. So, not to change your beliefs on things, but to get into what you said, let's talk about it. Because I think we can perhaps learn a little bit more about this information by looking at this. So, I do thank you for your concern, and I do thank you for this comment. I mean this sincerely and with respect to you as a person, out of concern and caring. Maitreya is either the false prophet of revelation or the coming man of lawlessness himself. Do not take their coming mark. There is only eternal damnation for those who do. The masters are demons. Ask them, command them to tell you in the name of Jesus. And then you quoted some scriptures from John. Right. There is only one way. Jesus is not an ascended master. He is Yahweh in the flesh. He is all over all. Don't be deceived. We are living in perilous times. We will not bring our own peace. There is only true and lasting peace to be found through belief in him, that he is the Messiah, that he died for your sins and mine, and repenting and following his commandments and ways. Please pray about these things to the Father and no one else. Ask, and he will show you everything. He is so good. By the way, in Revelation, the vendors are dismayed as Babylon is destroyed. It will be destroyed. All who worship the harlot and the beast will share that fate. And then you quoted Revelation about some plagues. And maybe you know all this and have chosen your path. I wish you the true peace that can only be found in Yahweh. Shalom. So, again, thank you for your comment and thank you for your concern. Now, you said Maitreya is either the false prophet of Revelation or the coming of the lawless one himself. Now, why are those the only two options? So, why can't he just be a teacher? So let me explain. Okay, and then you said something about the coming mark, which is not anything to do with Maitreya at all. That was a symbol that was in there. But anyway, but I always ask this of people who are willing to comment and about Maitreya being the antichrist. And the questions that I always ask them is, have you met him in person? Have you ever seen him on TV and recognized him on TV now that he's on TV? Have you ever, if you have met him in person, have you experienced his teachings, his wisdom, his love, and had that change you for the better? Have you even taken the time to read one of his priorities? Can you name any of the priorities of Maitreya other than the need for peace? So if you haven't, how can you say that he is who you think he is? Now, I've met Maitreya. I've seen him in my life. I've experienced his teachings. I've experienced his wisdom. And his teachings have changed my life for the better. So what I would say, before I get into that, is Jesus said a tree is known by its fruit, did he not? I believe that's to be a truth. And it's a wonderful teaching, and that teaching has changed my life, just looking at that. So why not wait and see versus just assume that what you're thinking about him is true? It might not be true. So, but let's just say, for instance, if you see him on TV and start to recognize him, if what I think Maitreya to be is true, then his teachings will start to change things for the better. And you can see it change life on planet Earth for the better. Maybe there will be the ending of hunger and those kind of things. Maybe peace will be established and yada, yada, yada. If what you think about Maitreya is true, then therefore, theoretically, the opposite should be true of that, should it not? And then you'll know for sure. But up until that point, you've never even seen him. You don't even know. You're just talking about a figment of some imagination. You don't have anything to go on. So what's the point, really? Now, the times that I've seen Maitreya, he never said he was Maitreya. I had to recognize him through my own spiritual recognition of him. Just like on TV, he's not claiming to be Maitreya. It would take somebody having to be able to recognize him on TV from their own spiritual nature and intuition to be able to see that is him. But the times that I've seen him, for instance, there was a teaching he gave me on the street. He said, I never judge anyone on whether they're good or bad. I only notice the good things that they do. And I started to apply that to my life, and it actually changed the way that I view perhaps my coworkers, some family members, people that I had difficulty in my life, and it changed the way that I interacted with them, and I stopped being critical of them. Maybe not perfectly at first, but it changed my life for the better. And it created healthier relationships with people, more peaceful relationships with people than I did before. I was fighting people too much. Like I said, I'm not perfect at it, but it has helped. And I see the benefits of applying that teaching to my life. So, to go back to what Jesus said, a tree is known by its fruit. That teaching that he gave me, the fruit of that tree has changed my life and has made for better relationships in my life. Made me a softer, more loving person. Is that evil? Does that mean that he's the son of perdition or whatever you guys like to call him? Or is he just a teaching? Because when I saw him, he never said for me to believe something other than what I believed. He never told me to stop believing in Jesus and believe and worship him. He never told me that he was even Maitreya or to take a mark, and put it on my hand or my forehead or whatever you believe. It was just a simple teaching he gave me. That changed my life. The other one that comes to mind is when he said, peace always comes from within. And he said it to me when I was at work, when I was very, very stressed at work and very stressed in my personal life. And I started applying that to my life. And I started to see that not only was I trying to have my external world bring me peace, and therefore I wasn't creating peace in my life, but yet when I started to apply it, lo and behold, I started to become the eye in the center of the hurricane, and I became at peace more than I was. Is it perfect? No. Do I freak out from time to time? Absolutely. What I'm saying? But not nearly as much as I was before. And then when I do go through those moments of where I forget what he said, I have to remind myself of it and try to apply it. But when I saw him then, he didn't tell me to believe something other than what I had already believed. He never told me to stop being a Christian and believe in him and worship him and give me a mark on my hand or my forehead of whatever. It was just a simple teaching. And when you see Maitreya on TV and recognize him, and when he's out known for who he is as Maitreya, he's not going to ask anybody to receive a mark of the beast. He's not going to ask you to believe in him and not in what you already believed as a Christian. In fact, he's going to probably say the opposite. If you're a Christian, stay a Christian. Why do I know that? Because he's already said that. he said God can be discovered in any moral framework, in any belief structure. But God is really beyond belief, to really be honest. So that's why so many people have different views of God. Now, he will be talking about the concern. His concern is with humanity as it is right now. The problems that are facing humanity, like hunger, like injustice, like war, terrorism, those kind of things, like the environment. He's got other priorities, so he will approach humanity the same way that he approaches all of us individually. As this is a teaching, try it, use it, see if it works. And I would be willing to bet you if we just started doing what he said, we would see the fruits of his labor. Of his teaching, excuse me, not of his labor, of his teaching. And then like I said, I always offer this up. You said something about, where is it? We will not bring our own peace. Well, there's no truth to that. We've already created peace before by doing exactly what he suggested, which is share the resources of the world. And I offer this up as evidence with the Marshall Plan. And I put a link in there for people to watch a video about it. It doesn't talk about it in this way, but if you look at it and you go to Wikipedia and you look at all the nations that are listed that participated in the Marshall Plan, every single one of those nations had been at war with one of those nations at some point throughout its history. Since the Marshall Plan took place 70-something years ago, for just a few years, since then even after it stopped, not one of those nations has attacked another nation. Now, it's not a perfect peace, but they have goodwill amongst those nations. So to sit here and say that we can never bring our own peace, and certainly not bring peace through sharing, is not true, because we have already. He's just advocating doing it globally and ongoingly. That's it. Now, someone might disagree with the thought that without peace there could be no future. But I don't think that there's any real debate about that one, because we have the ability to destroy ourselves militarily right now. We have a lot of nations have nuclear bombs. And a lot more nations than are listed have nuclear bombs. And some of those nations that are listed and unlisted have multiple numbers of nuclear bombs. We're living through a time right this second where there's a situation in the world that could lead to the ending of life on this planet. That's not exaggeration. That could happen. Putin has access to thousands of nuclear bombs. If he pressed the button and sent one of them into the Ukraine or into Europe against NATO or whatever, that would be it. That would be the end of life on this planet. I hope to God he doesn't do that. I also hope that he doesn't share a lot of fundamentalist Christians' beliefs that it's inevitable that the world is going to end, so why even bother? Which is a lot of times what I take issue with when people read Revelation. They have that kind of, it says in the Bible the world's going to end, the world's going to end. What's it matter? That's fine. I'm fine with it. I'm right with Jesus, so we're all good. I don't buy that at all. In fact, I do take issue with that belief, because that's just complacency. That's just laziness, and that's just a cop-out. Jesus talked about the commandments in the same way that I think that we should be looking at the Bible. He said, God made the Sabbath for man, not man for the Sabbath. I think it could also be put in there that God made the Bible for man, not man for the Bible. But the commandment that most Christians take to be the greatest commandment, love thy Lord thy God with all thy heart and soul, put no other gods before him. Jesus himself said there's a commandment that's just as great as that one. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And as a Christian, Heather, can you truly say you love your fellow brothers and sisters in this world and allow people like some of them to die of starvation in a world of plenty? Would you be able to look at Jesus in the eye and say that? I love humanity. Well, why don't you try to do something to help them? Nobody's trying to help them. They have no voice. If we shared the resources of the world, we could end hunger at a stroke. We could show and manifest love on this planet and anchor it in the real world, rather than having it just be this religious ideal that we'll get to someday. you know? So Maitreya is a teacher of in a practical way, about the problems of the world and how to solve them. He's not a religious leader. He'll tell you that because he's already said that. You know, he says actually in people like myself who refer to him as a Christ, who see him as the Christ, he would say even somebody like me, those are just names that probably people don't even understand what it means, really. He's, you know, people in the Asian community of London looked at him as the Imam Mahdi. Asked him if he was the Imam Mahdi, and he would say, well, if I'm the Imam Mahdi for you, what about the Christ for the Christians? What about the Messiah for the Jews? What about them? He said, these are just names, and they cause nothing but confusion in the minds of people. That's why religious folks like yourself, when I talk about this and how important it is for peace and the need to share and all these kind of things, they keep going back to what I said about him being the Christ, you know, or my view that he's the Christ. You don't have to believe that, but I hope that you will look at it as the most important thing that we can do right now is to bring about peace, to bring about sharing. If you don't think that we can bring about peace, at least do what Jesus said and feed thy sheep. You know, give to the poor. That was Jesus's teachings. You know, we can do that right now. We can do that nation to nation, you know, if we so choose. If we had the will to do it, we could end hunger by this time next week. It would be gone. We have the facility to do it. We have the resources to transport the food. We just have to have the will we just have the will to do it, really. Now, I am going to leave you with this because I don't want to go on and on and on about it. But, you know, with the biblical quotes, I could sit here and say, you know, you're not reading that right, or, you know, my view is better than yours or whatever. But I'm not going to do that. You have your view on what you think that those verses mean. I would read into it differently, and I'm fine with that. I'm saying you might not be fine with my view, but I don't really want to debate it. Why? Because it's really meaningless. It's just a meaningless debate about Scripture. You know, I'm only concerned about one thing, the future, and I even offered this up in the commentary when I wrote the comment back to you in the reply is, I was quoting the Matrix. You know, I'm only concerned about one thing, the future. And I know the only way to get there is together. That was a quote from The Matrix, right? It's a fantasy movie. It was a wonderfully entertaining movie. I love the whole concept of it, entertaining-wise. I don't think there's any truth to it. But that one statement, there was a tremendous amount of truth in that statement. You know, that to me is what has me put these videos up. So, you know, have I chosen this path? Yes, I have, because that's what I see as the most important thing, is the future for humanity. The only way to get there is together. The only way to do that is to start to manifesting love. The only way to do that literally is to share the resources of the world to bring about justice, to bring about peace. And then lastly, I want to say this. In terms of the masters being demons and ask them and command them to tell you in the name of Jesus, if you read your own scriptures, Hebrews 12:23, the last sentence has the last part of the last sentence says, just men made perfect. That was a direct reference to the masters. Jesus in the Bible also said, greater things than this shall you do yourself. I've never once heard a pastor or a televangelist or a priest comment about what they thought he meant by that. He was talking about the inner divinity of all of us, that we will eventually start to manifest that divinity just as he manifested that divinity, and beyond that. And so to sit here and say that, you know, I don't believe that he is the only true Son of God the way that you do and so many other fundamentalist Christians agree upon. I don't see him like that. I think Jesus was a wonderful teacher. His teachings were quite extraordinary, especially for the time. They've lived through the centuries, but yet the Christian churches have not lived true to those teachings. Or we'd be living in a totally different world today. A tree is known by its fruit. And I'm not saying about each individual Christian, but the overall umbrella of the churches as a whole over the centuries, they've taught little, healed even less, but the main fruit of what they're talking about, the dogma, the separation, you know, those kind of things, has brought nothing but bigotry, hatred, violence, confusion, and fear. So the tree of that fruit is those things. That's why I don't buy any of that stuff. You might, but if you look at it from that standpoint, it might help. I don't know, might not, but I think it's more important to look at, you keep your belief. I'm not trying to change your belief or anybody else's, but want peace for the world. And if you don't want peace for the world, at least want to end hunger or do something to at least try to alleviate it at some point. That to me are Christian values. I hope this makes sense, and I hope this shed some light on what you had to say. So I really appreciate your comment, Heather. And you take care, everybody. And
remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.